Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about backyard politics, ladies and gentlemen. That is a thinker. So, we will be thinking about that today. So, with that being said, thank you so much, Dr. Wiener, for coming onto my show, sharing your time and your perspective with me on this. Let's go ahead and just dive right in. When you hear the words backyard politics, what does that make you think about?
Well, that was the title of the book that I just released, which is it's a psychological understanding of today's political divide and social divide. So I've been a psychologist for 46 years, and I thought it made sense to show how family life and politics kind of mimic each other. The same kinds of issues and concern come up when you're raising children, as the same way as people when they have to relate to each other in the larger society. Just like in families, we have to find ways of agreeing, working with each other, cooperating with each other, resolving conflicts, protecting each other, and also helping each other learn so that we can master the world in ways that can help other people as well as ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's a beautiful way to just put it all in one book and allow the world to just receive it and really embody it into their own lives because people don't really think about it unless it's on the news and then they feel bombarded by it, and they don't really know how to explain it and break it down to like their loved ones or what's going on, or when children ask like what is really going on, or what is politics and what is all this extra stuff. It's really hard for parents to really break that down and put it in a sense where it's like, huh, how do I really think about this? So that's why I'm kind of glad that you wrote this in a book. And your background in psychology, does that give you an advantage or a disadvantage? You know what I mean?
Well, it's an advantage in the sense of having experience about what people do in the world and how they solve problems, and what are the agreements and disagreements about. And for politics, it's much more looking at politics from the lens of psychology rather than the particular issues. That does it make sense to do this in this situation or that? It has a lot of it has to do with what I take to be whether there are two primary ways of helping people that I've observed over time. Is one, you could help people by rescuing them because you feel as if the situation they're in requires relief from the situation. You can't expect the person to really do much about it. It's like drowning. You don't expect
Mhm.
the person drowning to be able to do anything. You have to just rescue them. And the other way of helping in other situations is the idea of how can they overcome the hardship they're experiencing by learning new skills and new ways of responding so that they can overcome the difficulties they're facing. Now, those situations, we want the person to learn and adapt. So it's two very different kinds of helping. And the question is, in today's politics and what also in child rearing, I think we're seeing many more situations where we feel like rescuing is the solution. So we're kind of giving in to kids because we kind of, we're protecting their emotions, we're guarding them, we're making sure they don't have any injuries and safety. And usually in a society where there's a lot of abundance and people are flourishing, it's a lot easier to rescue each other because we have the means and resources to do it. But on the other hand, it probably isn't helping people learn on their own how to overcome some of the difficulties they're facing. But it's a fine line because a lot of times if you're helping somebody learn, you have to kind of go to their level and get to the point where they could learn something so they're not so overcome by the obstacles. You have to a good teacher knows how to go to the child's level and help them learn. You can't just expect them to do this great thing. You have to kind of go in increments. So it's a tricky thing to help somebody learn too. There's a degree of rescuing that goes with it, but you're still paying attention to developing the person's resources versus just rescuing them.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you listen to a political argument one side is really focusing on these people are being harmed, these people are dying, these people are unable to. The world they live in is so awful for them. We must stop the way the world is so awful to them. And there's no talk about the person and the development of the person's resources. And the danger for that way of helping is you can run into reinforcing victimization and dependency and a lack. You know, if a baby's crying, you just rescue them because you don't expect a baby to do anything. All right. But
Mhm.
as the kid gets to be older, you hope that they learn not just to tantrum, but to kind of gather themselves and learn to do something more constructive and learn.
Yeah.
So we we're shifting towards what I call the protective view, which is the rescuing view, and we're not as frequently looking to develop the
Yes.
individual. You have kids, so it's
Yeah.
you know that there's a balance between just doing something to them or helping them learn to do something different.
Oh, absolutely. I think those are valid points because if we can put it in a child's perspective as a parent's perspective, and then you can put it in just straight politics, and we can see it in day and age where you see that enabling, you see that victimization, you see all of that happening, and then we don't realize like there needs to be some type of development, there needs to be some work into it, there needs to be some type of acknowledging that there's possibly a way for them to do something about it, but we have to, if it's the resources that we need to be able to help with, okay, then let's talk about those resources, let's talk about the environment, let's really get to the nitty gritty, because at the end of the day somebody can choose to be anything they want and nothing at all at the same time, you know what I mean? And like one thing I'm teaching my children is like they need to develop this understanding of how to calm themselves down. So when they're crying now, I know every tone, I know what is really happening. If it's just an annoyance cry, I ignore it. You know what I mean? If it's just like, oh, I'm hurting, I'm really hurting, like, okay, I know that I know that cry too. And I think when we deal with politics, I mean, they need to realize that as well when it comes to the people, you know what I mean? So it's like, do you really think there's some lack of empathy in politics, or is it too
But
much
I
empathy?
think I think what I try to do is you're giving empathy to develop the kid too, even though there's short-term discomfort. You're just relieving immediate discomfort when you're doing the rescuing. I'm not saying don't ever do rescuing, but I'm saying that's a short-term solution, and it's the whole idea of knowing when it's reasonable to teach a person to fish rather than giving them a fish.
Yes, yes, that's the right way. Though that's the right phrase. I couldn't really think about it, but yeah, I think it's the fact that we need to teach the next generation really how to think, really how to move about in this world, and really know what is worth putting their attention to and what's not going to benefit them, because if we're constantly trying to protect the next generation, then what are they going to do once we're gone? You know what I mean? How are they going to really survive? How are they going to really live? Like the point of our lives and for each generation, in my perspective, is like it's a stepping stone. You know what I mean? We're supposed to be stepping up and moving forward, but unfortunately it's like instead of having it a stepping stone, we're just leveling out and everything's not really going anywhere, we're not progressing, you know? So it's just like we really need to move in a direction that brings value to everybody. You know what I mean? Like we can't protect everything, you know what I mean? You can't learn, you have to learn, you know what I mean? To be able to learn, you have to go through experiences and determine what it really means for you. Like how is it going to affect you in your life as an individual? So what does this ideology really make you think about when it comes to politics?
It makes me listen to what are people trying to accomplish when they're not just relieving discomfort. Are they doing something else that would help people in a different way rather than you could say they're harming people. Yeah, it's if I don't give you a fish, I'm harming you right
I mean,
away.
you're
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, the to a degree, you could be that I mean, that person could perceive it in that way, but also it's like you could be enabling them, you know what I mean, at the same
That's
time,
the
like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's like it's a double-edged sword at the end of the day because it's like how are you gonna perceive it? Are you gonna be upset and throw a tantrum at 28, 32, 54, 80 years old, you know what I mean? Because they didn't give you a fish? Like, we have to look at the circumstance, like, okay, if you're 32 and you're still able to go fishing, then go fish. Find as many fish as you want, you know what I mean? Go all over, you know, but if you're 80 and you're crippled and you're unable to move, then okay, I'll give you a fish, you know, like we have to be very realistic when it comes to our circumstance. But do you think that the United States is divided right now when it comes to politics?
yeah. I think that the two sides of there's the protector group, which is uh, making sure people have their emotions guarded and their discomfort relieved, and they people feel as if they're being harmed by society, and the society is so oppressive that there's no way to overcome any of the ways in which society is structured, that it's all bad and evil and terrible for them. And there's a kind of a hatred of the way society is structured. And the solution is, if we destroy all the bad things about it, then we free people to then be free to not be harmed. And somehow something magical will happen where people will be happy. And the question is, what do they do after all the destruction occurs? Who's going to do what? Who's got any skills at that point? Because they haven't
Yeah.
been, they've just been rescued. They haven't really had any skills other than to destroy. So we have to figure out every society, as soon as you impose limits or delay in gratification on anybody, it's going to be seen as oppressive. If you have kids and you're not giving the lollipop right away, you're saying, I'm protecting your teeth and your diet and everything else, but the kid doesn't see it that way, sees it as harm. So
Yeah.
then, but sometimes parents can be harmful and sometimes society can be harmful. And there's been many instances over history where society has been unreasonable and they have not had equal ways of treating of laws where people were all subjected to the same rules and processes. But to then destroy everything is going to be a problem. And if you think about what's going on, there's this debate about the harmfulness of America, and it's going across all of Western societies. And many of it comes from the the view that even if you look at men and women and how they reacted to each other or organized with each other over the decades, when life was very difficult and harmful and dangerous, men and women had to organize in a particular way, which is really no longer necessary now when things are made safer and there's jobs that everybody can do. They're not just working in dangerous. So people reorganizing. But the notion that men have created evil societies for women and just want to oppress women is the same idea of uh, white men want to just oppress the world, and it's just new ways of demonizing certain groups of people because there's
Right.
been some people that have created problems. It doesn't mean that. How do you decide that people are doing these awful things, and how are we labeling their behavior? If you look at couples that are having trouble with each other, the person thinks you're doing this to be mean or hateful, rather than they're not even understanding each other's perspective and often just blaming each other for what's going on, rather than even looking to how they participating in what's going on. Is
Oh,
it that
absolutely.
society is just oppressing you, or you're not really taking advantage of some of the opportunities that are available? When you're not taking advantage of the opportunities because society's been so oppressive, it's destroyed my ability to take advantage. The argument goes forever.
It
We
really
blame
does.
others, or you take some responsibility for yourself, and that's the kind of ongoing problem.
Oh, absolutely. I agree because I just finished posting a quote about how sometimes protection can be perceived as punishment. So it really does go alongside with what you were just saying. Like it really is very subjective. The way that people are perceiving life is very subjective. We don't even realize like what could be an opportunity in one season in our life is possibly not even fathomable because you see it as like, oh, I'm being repressed, I'm being secluded, I'm being out out like bursted, you know what I mean, outside of the system. And it's like, no, people are trying to like isolate me and everything like that. But it's like we have to allow things to be viewed at a bigger perspective, and we truly have to allow time to heal the wounds that we have, because if we don't allow time to heal our wounds and we don't allow our perspective to shift between that time, then time will never heal our wounds. We have to allow the shifting of our minds and our perspectives to evolve with each time, with each everything that's given, because then history will repeat itself undoubtedly, because we are not learning anything, we are not gaining anything, because there's wisdom in everything. But we are not realizing that, because we're choosing to be offended right now, but we don't realize like, oh, this offense in one moment can be wisdom in the next moment, you know what I mean? But people don't want to have that understanding. They rather feel comfortable throwing a pity party, or they feel comfortable being vulnerable or this victim, like, oh, woe's me. But in reality, like, come on now, step up now, keep walking. Eventually you get there. Eventually it'll happen for you. I mean, you can pause, you can take a break, but just keep walking. But don't allow this victim to be over you, because it's going to ruin your perspective with life, with people. Like, you're going to always be discriminatory, or have this hate, or have this anger towards something, someone, or a group. And when in reality, it's like it's not that way. Like, any race, any religion, any sex, like, we're all the same in some way, shape, or form. But it's like that personality characteristic, that characteristic can make somebody feel like, oh, well, everyone's all bad, men are all bad, women are all bad, you know what I mean, Jews are all bad, or Muslims are all bad. Like, it's like, no, like, not everybody's all bad. It's that one bad sour egg can truly make a big impact. And if you allow yourself to just focus only on that, then you are only going to see that, because that's where you're focused on. And now you have blinders on, and you're not seeing life for what it really is. And it's beautiful. Life is beautiful in the chaos. Life is amazing in it, all that it is. So it's like, do you think people just really need to have more of an open mind when it comes to politics and life and everything that comes with it?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you said was really great, and if it's difficult for all of us to get past some of the hardships and mistreatment we've experienced, and if we start generalizing to the whole world, or just live as if that's is the only thing possible, then you just stay as a victim and a complainer, and want other people to change. And we're not, think about when people go to Alcoholics Anonymous, they have to learn to change themselves.
Yeah, that's very
You
true.
have to
I mean,
stop just so much of what you're saying. But how do we do it with enough compassion that the person would see that, it's not that I don't have any empathy for you, but it's better for you to readjust and see if you can achieve and flourish in the world, even though it's not a perfect world.
yeah,
And you had these terrible things happen. Uh,
yeah. I
so,
think
but
I
it's risky to try.
yeah.
A lot
Well,
of
it's
people,
risky. It's risky also not to try, right? I
that's
mean,
the thing.
at the same time, like, you can be on the fence, but that's still a decision. If you choose not to say yes or not to say no, those still has consequences. Every yes we say in our now has a tie, has a string to something in the future, and every no we say now also has a string in the future. And if we don't do anything, that also holds something that's going to affect us later on in the future. And people don't really realize that, like, your actions, your thoughts, your perception through life, it holds so much of you and determines so much of your destiny, of your path, that it's like, unless you're willing to shift, nothing's really going to change. You're always going to see the negative, you're always going to see the bad, you're always going to see the terror in life. But it's like, when you shift it, oh my god, you are able to see the beauty in everything, and even in the ugly, like, even in death, even in life, like, you know what I mean, you're able to just have that glimpse of hope. And I think people, just in this day and age, and in all walks of life, and all over the world, not just in the United States, you know what I mean, they have this need to just know that what they're doing has more value than what somebody may say it is. You know what I mean? So many people are perceiving that they have no value in what they do, but it's like in reality, like, no, you have so much value in everything that you're doing. And it's like, I know that you wrote this book because you have this psychology background, and you're trying to help open people's minds and perception about politics and not being divided. But what really just made you realize, like, you know what, this needs to be written in a book?
Well, yeah, I wrote three other books on doing this with ADHD. It's the same problem. They get diagnosed with this so-called neurological delay, and then they believe that they have this uh, problem with themselves that can't be solved and repaired, and they have to rely on either drugs or other people to manage for them, or they have a reason why they're not making achievements in the world. And I try to help them recognize that these avoidance behaviors are occur as in defense against failure or other kinds of problems, or whatever their behaviors. I try to help them learn how it was reinforced over time because it solved certain problems. So it was the same thing with writing this book. Was we grow up and we have a view of ourselves and within our family, and we see our parents in a certain way, and we grow up and we start to see the same way of the way we saw our parents. We start to see the world in similar ways as we saw our parents. Well, they're
Yeah.
just mean, or they're neglectful, or they're harmful, or they're very loving, or they should give me what I want, or they treat me like I'm a king or a queen, and I should be able to tell everybody what to do. And
Yeah.
so as a psychologist, I just see such consistency between what we do as in our family group and what we then do in the other groups when we go to work, and when we think of politicians, when people see politicians, who do they remind them of? What are they triggering for people or eliciting? And then
That's
they have
true.
this kind of reaction. They don't know anything about the person. They just see them in the same light. Maybe they saw a rejecting or oppressive parent, or a cheating parent, or or it's
No.
incredible how it's just the same kinds of human responses.
It really is. It's like a cycle. Like you see this endless cycle in a way that's like, come on now, people. Here's a book, read it, think about it, marinate on it, and let's figure out if it actually applies to you. And if it does, then great. Use it and fix yourself. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, nobody can really fix you besides you, you know? That's the reason why I have my show. That's the reason why I have you as my guest and so many other great guests that I've had, because it allows other people to listen, to perceive, to hear, to consider, to reflect, to marinate, just think, so that later on it's like a mustard seed. Everybody it's just a little mustard seed. We're just thinking about it so that we can just let it grow something beautiful within us later on in time. And it's like we all have to realize, like at some point, we are all this plant that like a tree that brings life, that brings shade, that brings oxygen, that brings beauty in a way that if you unless you're not able to see it, then you're not going to know that that's what you do. You know what I mean? That's what you are, and that's what you can embody. And it's really interesting because people don't realize like what they really can do. Like humans are so powerful in such a way that we don't even tap into all that we are, because we're so stuck on the surface level of life, that when you dive deep in, like, man, the beauty of what humanity can be if we actually realize like what we all are. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. I mean, that, to be honest, that's a whole nother topic. Let's be honest, right? But time is catching up to us. So, what can be some lasting words that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Uh, I would say that you want to kind of have a balance between the rescuing and the promoting of the person's adaptation to the world, and that there are times when you rescue, but if it becomes excessive and there are opportunities for your child or people to learn and grow like you're talking about, that's probably the better option, even though it might play out over time and not just be an immediate gratification that you get from the rescuing. But there's a kind of, like you say, there's a positive message towards you can make changes. People have, in one generation, people have gone from poverty to affluence, and not everybody's going to do it, but it's certainly you can make improvements if you think about what you can do to change to make things better, and you can change the world while you do that, but if you just depend on others changing, you're really gonna not empower yourself like you're suggesting.
Yeah, I think those are valid words because we have to take that ownership, take that self-responsibility. You know what I mean? And we need to realize that instant gratification, it only works for certain things, but it's not realistic to think that everything in life is going to be that way. You can't think, oh, because you did one push up that now you're strong, mighty man, or that, or you did one crunch, now you're going to have a flat stomach and a six pack of abs. Like it doesn't work like that. Like it takes time, it takes work. And it's like when we put that into politics, when we put that into family, when we put that into love, when we put that into anything, that we want to embody, then we have to realize like it's going to take time. And as long as you give yourself that time and you give yourself that opportunity to shift, then it really does it changes everything. It changes everything because man, it changes everything. Oh my goodness. But ladies and gentlemen, if you guys enjoyed this conversation, because how could you not, go please check out his book, check out his website, check out all of the greatness that he has to offer the world. It's in the audio in the description. You find access to his link. And if you're on YouTube, access to his link is right there in the description. And for you on my website, find his photo, click on it, boop, it goes directly to his website so that you can continue on thinking, ladies and gentlemen. So please continue on thinking. Bye.